Yesterday, we took a close look at the dangers of text addiction. And this morning, as promised, we've assembled a panel of experts to answer your questions about technology overload. We have early show contributor Dr. Jennifer Hartstein, a child and adolescent psychologist, early show medical correspondent Dr. Jennifer Ashton, and CBS News legal analyst Jack Ford. What a panel.
Good morning.
Wow. We could ask you just about any question in the world. But these are all about technology issues and texting in particular and use of computers. And I'm going to start, Dr. Hartstein, with you. And this is from a Facebook fan who writes, how can we break our teenage son's addiction to his computer, iPad, and iPod? Technology has changed him to a much more moody and antisocial person. And you don't look surprised by this question.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I don't. Kids really are so attached to their technology. It's so important for parents then to really step in and set limits. It doesn't surprise me that he's becoming more isolative, more withdrawn. So if you want that to end, you need to say, at 11 o'clock, I'm taking every bit of electronics out of your room and you can't have it. Expect there to be some pushback, but really set that limit and say you get 4 hours of screen time a day, if that much, and really start to say you have to get face-to-face time, not face-to-screen time, and that's so important for these teenagers.
Well, I don't think it sounds particularly easy to do, but this is where
so
you really have to stand up.
We talked about discipline yesterday. This is where you have to set a clear limit and stick to it.
All right. Dr. Ashton, this question is for you. Karen asks from Twitter, does Facebook and Twittering and all this other stuff, does it add to or contribute to attention deficit disorder?
Interesting question. Short answer, Harry, is no. There's no conclusive evidence that links them. It may be that children with ADHD are more comfortable in the technology environment because socially that might be an easier realm for them to interact in. However, what we do know is that teens who spend an excessive amount of time online or plugged into some type of screen are at 2 times the risk for depression. So it's not without its risk.
But that just rubs up against the first question, right? This isolation and everything else. All right, third question goes to Jack. Comes from a viewer who happens to be standing outside. Kyle, can you have a question for Jack? What is it?
Yes, my question concerns employee use of the internet in the workplace. Does the supervisor have the right to monitor all of that employee's online activity in the workplace, including keeping copies of all email, without informing the employee that this is being done?
Wow, that is a really good question, Jack.
Kyle, it's a great question. And the short answer is, you know what? If it belongs to the employer, they have a right to take a look at it. Now, good policy would be that employers would tell their employees coming in. By the way, so you should all know, anything you do on the computer, if you're issued cell phones from the business, we're going to take a look at it. Might not all the time, but we have the right to do that. Employers don't always follow that policy, but people should know. The simple rule is, if it's not yours, if it belongs to the employer during the work hours, be careful what you write, be careful what you send out, because generally speaking, they have the ability to take a look at what you're doing.
All right, great. Dr. Hartstein, this is for you. Back to an email question. This is particularly good. Children today don't speak in full sentences. Instead, they speak in what they call text Latin, all right? How on earth do I learn what they're saying?
Right, it's the new pig Latin, right?
Yes.
There are a lot of, you have to ask your kids to start off with, ask them what they mean. And also, I would suggest looking at different websites. There's some different really terrific websites that are constantly putting on new abbreviations and new things. So some that I would recommend is noslang.com. You can actually see what put the text information in that your kid might have on their phone, and it'll translate for you.
It's like a translation device.
It's a translation device.
I was cool and high tech when I used the letter U instead of spelling out Y-O-U. And my kids
Sadly,
said,
you are
look
far
at you,
behind.
how good
You're
are
a dinosaur, big guy.
You are far
All right,
behind.
can we put a little example up on the screen for some people who just don't really understand the kind of shorthand that people use to communicate? Now, this means something if you know what it means. Now we're going to put up on the screen what the actual translation is.
Oh, no, there's 2.
Oh, okay, there's 2 of them.
So last night I was wrecked.
Right.
And be right back, parents over shoulder.
Look at that. Last
Harry,
night
you don't remember sending that?
You did send that, Harry.
That is amazing. All right. Dr. Ashton, I have another Facebook question for you. Debbie wrote to ask, do you think texting could cause carpal tunnel syndrome?
Well, the answer to this one, Harry, is it possibly could. This falls under the category of an overuse injury.
Sure.
We've heard of BlackBerry thumb or cell phone elbow. Any repetitive action, anything that you do over and over again for hours and hours a day can affect your body. So when you're talking about texting or on the computer, thumbs, wrist, elbow, neck can all become affected.
And is treatment improved for that? Because years ago, carpal tunnel was horrendous and risky.
Have you heard the saying from your doctor, "Doctor, it hurts when I do this," and what does the doctor say? Stop doing that. So that's the answer is rest and intervene on that repetitive action. Stop doing it.
All right, Jack, we've got a tweet asking, if someone creates a Twitter account or a Facebook page claiming to be me, not me in particular, but the viewer, can I sue them?
Well, here's a quick thing that you learn the first day in law school.
Right.
The answer is you can always sue. Can you win? That's the more important thing.
Right.
And the answer is, again, generally speaking, yes. If somebody's trying to take over your identity, and it's clear they're trying to hold themselves out as you,
right,
especially if they're doing something that's damaging to you or through your reputation, or damaging somebody else while they're pretending to be you, you can reach out and say, I'm going to stop this in some fashion. The real problem with all of the new media is, they might not be specifically saying, I'm Harry Smith or I'm Jack Ford.
Sure.
They might be suggesting it, so it can make it a little bit more complicated.
Right.
But the idea is you got to be very careful because you have to protect your identity.
And it's
out there.
ephemeral. It can exist one day and not exist the
And
next.
disappear in the
Are
ether
there
world.
internet attorneys?
Oh yeah, there are people who are very high tech, understand all this, plugged into this, and you should talk to them about these types of issues.
You did not have permission to ask it. And if you're going to ask it, it had to be on you had to be on your BlackBerry.
I'll text
exactly.
later.
Very good. Thank you all. It was really, really interesting stuff.